Alright, welcome to the tutorial on the review game world template. And I made this because I made a review world for a social studies teacher at the high school that I'm at. And I thought that this would serve well as a template that other teachers might want to use. It's a fairly simple review game where students um, will explore 6 different aisles in the hopes of getting questions correct, both which will then build bridges. So let's take a look at how this works. First thing you're going to want to do is download the file, which is a zipped file which has both the world and the planning document in it. So let's take a look at the planning document first. After downloading the review game template materials and unzipping the files, this is one of the files that's going to be located in there along with the world file. And this file allows you to plan out the questions you want to ask in your review world. This can be used by other students or teachers. It gives you the aisle number, it gives you the NPC name, and it gives you a place where you can actually put down the question it is that you want to ask. Now, each question has 4 answers within the NPC, unless I indicated otherwise. You can see down here, question bot, this is a true-false question. Each NPC also lists what the correct answer is coded as, so that way you can use that as a guide as well. But this will give you an opportunity to be able to plan out your questions before you jump into the world. It'll make it much easier. Plus, you can actually copy and paste the questions directly from this document into the NPC dialog box, and I'll show you how to do that next. All right, now let's move on to the world itself. So you're going to want to import the world first. So if you click on import, you're going to go to review game template is what it should be downloaded as, or what should be opened as. All right, so we're going to open that up, and that's going to import for us. And then we're going to click on view worlds, and we're going to go to the review game adventure here. All right, so I'm going to go to play. And just as your students will, you will actually spawn into the world in survival mode. And this is not going to serve you well to customize the game, so you're going to hit T to open up the chat function. All right, and we're going to hit slash game mode C, and that'll put us in creative. Okay. The other thing we want to do is we're going to have to go back into the chat feature, so hit T, and we're going to hit backslash WB. That allows us to access our NPCs with World Builder. So I'm going to double tap the space bar that allows me to fly. And then I'm using W to move me forward here. And one thing I would want to do is I want to actually avoid that stone structure right there. I don't want to go through there. You'll see on the right hand side there's actually a timer, and that timer will begin once a student walks through that gate right there. All right, so as you customize, you're going to want to avoid that gate. So this is fairly simple. You can click on the NPC, you can change the teacher's name to whatever you want. This is my last name. So you can do that. You can put Mr., you can put Mrs., you can put whatever title is that you would like to in front of that. That's absolutely fine. Then what you're going to do is you're going to click on Edit Dialog, and this is actually where you type the information. All right, so you just click on the dialog box, and you can actually delete all of this information here. And if you use the planning document, you can actually highlight whatever information you have in that document. For this first teacher NPC, you can hit Control-C to copy it, and then you hit Control-V then to paste it right in here. And this is really meant for an introduction. So there's one teacher NPC at the beginning of each one of the aisles that gives an introduction to that aisle. Okay. Now, one other little feature you can add in here is something under Advanced Settings. You can actually add a URL. So if you had a video you wanted students to be able to access, or different files you wanted them to be able to access, you could do that through a URL. So we're going to move on here, and you'll see there are various buildings on each one of these aisles. They were built there specifically for the review world that I created, but I decided to leave them in there because you could actually, do some things in there if you wanted to. You could throw some more NPCs in there just for the fun of it. It's just a few more things for students to be able to explore. So the first NPC that actually has a question is this guy right here. Okay, and this is question 1. Okay. And you'll see right here on the board, and I only put this on this first aisle here, but there are a few boards next to some of the NPCs that will allow you to be able to put in longer questions. And so in order to edit these, just click on the board, and once again, just like the first teacher NPC, you just delete it all, and you can copy and paste your question from your planning document. To access the NPC, just going to click on them. You can change the name of the NPC to whatever you want it to be, all right, or you can just leave it as question 1. You can then edit the dialogue, and you'll notice here the top part is designed for you to put your question in. So once again, you'll have to highlight it. You can use the arrows, and go back to delete this information. You can then put your question in here, right? And then you can type the rest of your question out. And then I put what the correct answer is actually for that slot. So a correct answer will actually give students a speed effect, which will speed them up. An incorrect answer will slow them down. All right. Now, if a student decides just to go in and just start clicking answers, all of those effects will just kind of add up. So they'll still be slow. So that's the reason why I built in the time function, because it would encourage students to pick only the right answer, as that would then give them only speed. It won't actually slow them down at all. All right. So if we travel here, I'm going to fly because I go a little bit faster. I believe this aisle has 4 different NPCs. This NPC right here has also a board behind them. And I left the example question in there just so you can kind of see what that looks like. So this is an example question from the review world that I created, but I thought it might be helpful for you to actually see what that looks like when you put a question in there with the 4 possible answers. And then of course, if you click on this NPC, go to edit dialogue, you can see how then I wrote that in there for the NPC, and then the correct answer is in here, or then the answers are located right here. Okay, just so you're aware. So this was put in here as an example. The correct answer is actually on the planning document. Okay, I didn't actually put it in here, but I thought it might be helpful to kind of see. And if you want to do something a little more advanced, you can see what each one of these answers does. Now, students will not be able to access this information because they won't have World Builder on. So all the students, I'm going to turn World Builder off, so all the students will be able to see is just this. Okay, they won't be able to access the actual NPC interface. Okay, so once again, if a student is creating these and you want the students to be able to see how this is done, they can then walk through and kind of see what each one of the effects were that were put on, how each one of the correct answers not only gives you speed, but it also builds a part of the bridge, and that's a huge part of the game mechanics. So let's explore that here. So once we walk over to the bridge, we can see the bridge itself is out. So if we fly over to the bridge, the idea is that correct answers will then build pieces of the bridge out. And because the world is in adventure mode, students cannot actually get any resources to build it themselves. So the only way they can build from one island to the next is by answering questions correctly. All right. So there are 6 worlds here. You'll notice each world has slightly different features on it, slightly different items. Of course, you can delete these if you want. You can go in and pick them out block by block. You can leave them, you can utilize them, you can add to them. Really, once again, this is just a template. It's just a starting point. So I tried to keep it as basic as I could, giving you resources to be able to create your own review world fairly simply. And I still left, of course, the 1 sample question in there just so you could see how I actually put the questions in there. All right. And ultimately, this is all leading to the final island. So there are 6 question islands, and then there is one. This is the 7th isle. However, there are no questions on here. This is the reward island, where students will be placed in creative mode. And they will then have the ability to, kind of play around, I guess, in this castle world if they'd like. The timer will then stop for them as well, so students could actually submit their time that they had on the timer. You could use that as a competition piece. Another reason why I created this template world is so that way Students themselves could actually create reviews for other students. You could do this as group work, where you have each group create their, spend one day creating their own review questions, and then the next day the students will trade their review worlds and see which group completes it the fastest. One last tip I have is, because you are creating this world and you want other people to be able to play this world, we have to set it up at the very end so that way whoever would spawn into the world spawns in the way you want them to. So you're going to have to head back to the beginning after you've filled in all the NPCs, after you've customized the 6 aisles or 7 aisles, however it is that you want to customize it. Then you have to hop back to the beginning, and once you go back to the beginning, you're going to go back into your chat menu just by hitting T, and you're going to change your game mode to adventure. So you're going to go game mode A. And then if you happen to have any kind of inventory, we want to make sure we clear that out. So we're going to hit the T key again, once again, to get into your commands. And we're just going to type the word clear, and it will clear any inventory you might possibly have. Then you're going to hit the escape button. You will save and exit, of course. And then after you save your world, you're going to go back into view worlds, and this is the review world we just saved. So we're going to go back into there, click on settings, and I'm going to rename this anything that you want to rename it. I would rename it based on the content that you have. So it might be math review game, or it might be a specific area, math or social studies or whatever. So you're definitely going to want to rename this whatever it is that you want to rename it. Make sure the default game mode is on adventure, difficulty is on peaceful. You can change the simulation distance. This is just how far they can see out. Want to make sure that show coordinates is off, and all the rest of these should be set correctly. Then all you're going to do is go down to export world, and then once you click that, it will actually bring up a pop-up menu that will save your world to a different location. Remember where you saved that world, and then you can share that exported world with fellow students. Teachers, you can then upload that to an LMS that students then can download for themselves to play either at school or even more favorable would be that for them to play at home. So there you go. That's how you set up your own review game world without having to mess with all of the coding, and the game mechanics are already set up for you. So best of luck, and happy building.